5:30, and I'll bang the gavel here. Please stand for pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
We're kind of together, doing a lot. Thank goodness we're not singing the national anthem.
We just got to find it right around. Okay, meeting's been called to order, and we're going to go into work session. Okay, a couple years ago, handbooks generated a lot of time and conversations. The last 2-3 years, we've been going to work session with handbooks just so we have an in-depth view and in-depth conversation. And Lane, are you on yet? Chris, are you carrying the ball tonight for Lane, or
Yep, yeah, I got it.
Okay.
We're ready to go.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll. Susan is 2.111, so I'll go ahead and turn over to Susan on her handbook. And I guess this is an interesting new way of doing this. So I guess Candy has efficiently numbered all the pages. So what Susan will do is take the page, the number at the very bottom center of the page is the page we'll refer to. So anyway.
I don't have one of those packets, so I can't refer to it. So, okay.
Okay.
Thankfully, Lane and I don't have a lot of changes, so that's cool. Okay, so we're going to start with the very first handbook, the parent handbook, on page 3. There's normally a welcome back letter there, and I just changed that letter to update it, but also to address how long our kids have been out of school, COVID, that kind of thing. Does anybody have any questions on that page? I can't see the
Just raise your voice and say something if you have a question. So,
okay.
Because we can't see if your hands go up or not. So.
From there, we're going to go to page 9. I always have changes on the supply list, and those are pretty straightforward. It's whatever the teachers want to use for supplies. And Preroute hay and Union supplies go to page 12, and I will put that one piece back up on 13. When we print it as a Google Sheets, a Google Doc, sometimes it shifts around just a little bit. So now I'm on page 13, and the updates there are just new hires, and that will change as well. I'm not done with hires yet. So, do you have any questions on page 13 about assignments at this time? Okay. From there, we're going to go to page 16 in the parent handbook. And Dustin already brought to my attention, when I did the spell check, I had a typo. I added in there the highlighted piece that we would like any student who is lactose intolerant to use a note from their doctor to be served juice for school lunch. That's been in there. I added any students with food allergies should report them to the school secretary, because we've never had much in our handbooks, and sometimes our kids have food allergies. We don't know anything about them. There are some balance, and that's pretty scary in a cafeteria situation.
So should it say lactose tolerant or lactose intolerant?
Intolerant. And that's,
This says tolerant.
yes, and,
Yeah, okay.
and Dustin already texted me.
Okay, gotcha.
So, one of the data board and another one. From there, I went to page 23 in the dress and grooming policy, and I had some issues with jeans, ripped jeans, and so I put in there jeans ripped above the fingertip length. They're wanting to have the jeans ripped clear up to the pockets in class, and I put that in there. And that is all for the parent handbook. Those are the only changes that I made. In the staff handbook on page 40, again, assignments for people. On page 43, in the staff handbook, we have our safety protocol, and there were changes on there in Bonnie's phone number, and putting Michael Carter in there as a contact. And that takes us through the safety protocol. And there is not much more in. Yeah, I don't think there's much more in the, I added on page 74, we've had in here that we had a zero tolerance policy regarding profanity, vulgarity, obscenities in the classroom, but I added bullying and harassment in there to just make that a little more cohesive. And that takes us through the staff handbook. If you'll look at page 85, there is a staff handbook and a parent handbook together. And I know that seems repetitive, but I think it's important for the board to know that I require my staff to be responsible for the parent handbook because they're different. The staff and the parent handbook are different, and I want them to know what the policies are for the kids. Lots of times they kind of fly by the seat of their pants, and I need them to know what the policies are. So I put it all together in their staff handbook. And that's the only changes I have this year for the handbook. We reworked it a lot last year.
Annie, do you have something?
I do. And maybe it'll be answered in a different. It'll be answered. But I was curious: are we putting COVID-19 criteria into the handbook, or are we waiting until the end? I mean, is that something that should be? Is it going to come out as a supplemental, or does it come out in our handbook as far as procedures and how we're?
These won't go.
I know that we don't know yet, but I'm just curious.
These will not go to print until later on in the summertime. If we need to put something in there, we would have to bring it back to you guys to look at it. But we don't have enough guidance to do much of anything right now. We don't even know what format we'll be opening in. We will have to put something into print. It may just be, like you said, a supplemental that goes out in addition to our handbook.
I think we sit in those ODE meetings, webinars every week. The COVID thing is just an absolute moving target every week with ODE and COSA. And I think at this time, this juncture with these books, I think basically we roll out messaging through the various ways we've been doing it so far, Annie. So I think for the time
I figured it was to be determined, but I thought I'd just ask
yeah,
if that
and I
was
think
something we were
the other thing we need,
looking at.
another thing we need to examine too, and I'm throwing out all the acronyms of various organizations. It's going to have to be an OSBA policy too, because you have OSBA policies that are related to contagious diseases and contagious disease protocol. So I suspect probably not under my watch, but under Michael's watch. I'm going to guess that OSBA will probably have a policy also related to COVID.
So it may not even have to go in the handbooks. It might just come above and be across the board through
Yeah,
the
I
state.
think the time. I think for the time being that would be the best angle to take on this. So.
Gotcha. I just thought I'd ask. I figured it was
Good
going to
question.
happen somewhere, but I wasn't sure where.
Good question.
We would provide additional information if the policy wasn't very user-friendly. We would help our parents with that at an elementary level, and then something written at the high school level to explain exactly what that policy meant and procedures look like. We just don't have enough information yet.
It's still very much a moving target. ODE really hasn't held anything down yet either. That's basically where our rules and our guides come from.
Right.
Susan, when you mentioned there on page 74 about a zero tolerance policy for the those following things, does that refer to above the general discipline guidelines, or is that what is the zero tolerance policy?
We're just sending a strong message that we want to follow we're going to act anytime we have a report of bullying, harassment, profanity.
Doesn't mean you're kicked out.
No, it just means that
You're in trouble.
we're going.
So I believe it kind of open-ended, depending on the severity of the issue. So that,
I said you're going to treat it differently with a kindergartner that says a cuss word versus an adult, a sixth grader that's cussing at a teacher.
that's the
So want to.
Yeah, quite a variance. Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, Lane, are you on?
Oh, there he
Looks
is.
like it.
Thanks.
Lane or Chris? I know Chris is on for sure. Lane, are you there?
Yes. If Lane's calling in, you may need to unmute him. I think sometimes call-ins.
Hey, I got it. Am I there?
You're there, yeah.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, Lane, you kind of came in. What we're doing on this thing, we're referring to the page number at the center bottom of the page to guide the board through that. Oh, do you have the packet?
Yeah, I have my handbook that was turned into Handy, so it should be the same thing, or is it in the packet?
It's in the packet is where it is. Well, let's just go to your, I guess what we need to do is go to your high school book and refer to your high school pages on the bottom right-hand corner.
So my handbook's pretty simple, folks. The student handbook is what I'm doing right now. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, go ahead.
The student handbook doesn't have hardly any changes, folks. I think most importantly, on page 8, we added some language about face masks. So, I'll turn to that.
So that's page 161 in the packet. Lane is doing the student handbook. That's 161.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm gonna let Chris go ahead and do it, and then I'll be here to answer questions.
Okay, that sounds good. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, but I'm going to back up to 153 because 153 is the beginning of our student handbook. Then you can see it's the date change. The next page, page 154, has all of our edits. So you can refer to page 154 if you have any questions about what page in the handbook or what those changes are. So as we go through, it's really minor stuff. It's years, adding names. On page, let's see here, 160, we added something on distance learning. So that's really the biggest addition. So page 160, we have that guidelines for distance learning. Annie, you had asked about changes if something comes down the pipeline. We just put something in there that's kind of general, and it's not, of course, if we have policy coming down, that will apply. This is just to set some expectations. So there's a paragraph there. Then page 161 is what Lane was referring to for the face masks. So we added that to the dress code. There's a couple of highlights there, permitted for medical reasons, and we're applying the same standard to face masks as to other clothing, so they don't advertise or display alcohol, drugs, tobacco, which are prohibited. You can see we added portable speakers. Specifically, we had that personal electronic music devices. We added the specific wording for speakers because that's kind of the new thing. Kids are walking around with speakers in their backpacks and their hands now. Some name changes, page 162.
The jukebox is back. Is that what you're saying?
Right? A double tape deck though, like it was when I was in
Joan Jett.
Speaker.
All right, me each other.
Okay.
So 167, there's a paragraph on bullying and intimidation, and we added a sentence to include social media and texting, because when that spills over into the school environment and affects the learning environment here, that is something that we need to address here then. So next page 168 includes an additional sentence for team lockers. There was really no mention of the team lockers, and so this kind of clarifies too who assigns those and when. So page 175 is really grammatical. Nope, that's not grammatical, sorry. That included daily middle school. We took that out because they're quarter, not semester. Uh, 177. This is also where we addressed a little bit of the COVID experience. So the paragraph on graduation requirements and diploma options on page 177. Those last two sentences there, we addressed that the requirements have changed for the 2021 cohort due to the executive orders during this school year. And so we've referenced, or we've tried to be open here by saying, hey, guidelines on the changes, speak with our school counselor, and that's also online at ODE. So that was really a lot easier than going through all of the changes for just that cohort and putting those on that next table and the pages that follow. Page 180, if you scroll down to page 180, we have the number 5 requirements which exceed the regular diploma requirements, so explaining the honors diploma. We were a little more clear there about the mathematics requirement. Okay, scroll down to page 185. And this is within the athletics portion. It's about the consequences for an athletics policy violation. The second violation that pertains to the athletic suspensions, we just clarified the language that it's an athletic plan of participation, not one of the academic plans of participation when there is a suspension involved, an athletic suspension specifically. So page 186, just some clarification on wording. Instead of regular attendance on page 186, we put 80% or better, which is the state standard for regular attendance. Clarify what it means for the day after rule. And that's all I had for student handbook. Questions?
I'm seeing none. Good job.
Okay, so the staff handbook is what starts on page 118 in your packet. So page 118 is that cover page. It says Lakeview High School, the Daily Middle School Staff Handbook. Again, highlights represent those changes, and really grammatical dates and names, starting with the date there on the cover page. The following page, just the new superintendent's name. Scroll down to 123. Again, name changes. Page 124 for the lunch hallway duty schedule, with some open spots there to be filled by the teachers that we hire for those spots. So just asterisks in their place at this time. Same for 125, the following page. Some of the pages will change as we delete some of the crossouts and some of these. Page 125 in your packet has all the date changes for the progress reports, grading periods, and such. And then all the rest I see are additional articles in terms of the, some pronouns, some names. If you go down to page 140, is really the next most substantial change, and that is just some clarification on language for daily bulletin. Ms. Mize generated the Google form this year to submit comments for the daily bulletin, and so we removed her name and just say submit the announcements. And then finally, page 144 in our booklet, 144. There's that big bold title. It says participation. Coaches and advisors are responsible to do the following. Line number 3 there, or number 3 rather, in the list. Submitting a list of participants 10 days after the beginning of practice rather than 15. And that's all I have for staff handbook. Questions?
Is your staff handbook any different?
We went through it, I did compare them to friendly staff.
Okay, so I guess I have a question then for the principals. I don't see anything in there about early release Wednesday teacher participation.
It's the expectation for the teachers.
The expectation from the teachers.
Is that in the contract, maybe?
Other duties of the
Or bargaining.
I just didn't know if we ever would come up with a case where a teacher would say, you know what, I'm good, I don't need it.
They're on the clock, 7:30 to 3:30, other duties of the sign. I mean, it could be bus duty, recess duty, cafeteria duty, come to a PD. Because we would probably need to put all of our duty schedules in there, all of our extra, things to spell that out. But I don't have a big issue because I'm gonna take all of the staff to put the further duties Wednesdays when they're required to come talk to us individually if they have a good reason. Like, for example, if I have a math review or something and my special ed teacher swamp, I may excuse her to not be at that particular training. But I'm happy to do whatever.
I was just curious if it was an issue or I didn't see it in there. It's pretty prevalent throughout our calendar. And just curious if there was any verbiage.
No, but we just sort of, our recording of these Wednesday calendars that we submit to you guys don't coincide for the meetings because we just don't have the queue nailed down yet. But, we could turn something into the board role and something like that with those calendars again. I haven't felt like it was.
Wayne, do you have any take on that, or Chris?
Hey, Chairman Schilberger, I'm the same with Mrs. Warner. We take attendance, and I've actually been impressed with people showing up. I've never really had to have folks, and folks that aren't there on Wednesday. I would say at least 98% of the time, I know where they're at. And those 2 or 3 occasions where I don't know where they're at, I'm like, oh yeah, and afterwards when I ask people, why wasn't so there? I think so far my staff firmly believes it's part of their day. So I don't see an issue with it now. And if we did have an issue with it, I think we could easily go back with their normal work day is defined by a certain time in their teacher contract and responsibilities. So we could definitely add something, but I don't see the need for it. And I feel comfortable what is already in the handbook of addressing it that way.
Okay.
And we have a whole set of disciplinary measures when the teachers are working, so.
Okay. Curious. I was just curious.
It's okay.
Does the board have other questions?
Well, on that subject, it reminded me, there's been several times that, if a teacher wants to leave at 3 o'clock, is that gotta have pre-approval for that, Lane? Because I've noticed several times that when I'm waiting to pick up my kids at the school, there's a few teachers that are regularly zipping out of there at 3 o'clock. And there's been times that I've gone into the school at about 3:05, 3:10, and I can't find a teacher to talk to. And so I guess if the regular time for them to be there is till 3:30, is there a pre-approval process for them to be able to get out of there?
Most of the teachers communicate with me if they need to get out of the building early, and I allow that to happen. On and not on like a regular basis every Wednesday, or let's say every Tuesday I gotta leave at 3, you know, but most of the time teachers check within me and say, hey, I need to get out early for something today, and I let it happen, especially those that are showing up, you know, at 7. So it's just kind of a deal. And I guess I would go back to, if it were a problem or a concern, then I would say, hey, you need to be there, or, you know, a parent was here to see you today, why weren't you there? And then try to reschedule that meeting. And then if it's something that returned occasionally, reoccurring occasionally, then I would address it.
Okay.
At the other,
I'll speak from my own personal experience. I didn't elevate it to that point. I found, rather than trying to catch a couple different teachers after school, it was easier to email them because the chances of catching them was pretty slim. And so I think it is maybe a little more of a problem for some, but I think it just maybe needs to be reiterated versus, I don't know if there's anything else that needs done. Just, I think there's a handful. There was a couple regulars that were out of there every day right after 3.
Duly noted. It's something that I will make sure I pay more attention to next year. Not making excuses, but using that 3 to 3:30 times is one of my busiest times, so I don't go around chasing them down. But we can talk about it another time, and I'll make sure that it's a point of emphasis next year at the start of the meeting, and maybe add it to some monthly staff meetings.
Yeah, I think that addresses it just fine. A point of emphasis, you know, from a parent standpoint, being able to meet with the teacher at 3 is a lot easier than at 7:30, or, you know, and probably for the teacher too. I imagine at 7:30 they're gearing up, getting ready for the day, and the last thing they want to do is be having a long, drawn-out conversation with a parent.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share my 2 cents with the elementary school. I don't have a kid up there where you have kids, Dustin, but I do find that a lot of the classrooms are empty, but it doesn't always mean that they're gone. I find myself needing to schedule an appointment with them because they're busy and they have other things going on after school that are school related and other parents they're meeting with, et cetera, et cetera. So I used to do that style and try to catch them as well, but I've found that I really got to set an appointment with them. So.
Okay. Any other topics or discussion? The handbooks.
You know, the only thing else I have, and this is, it's just kind of the new world we're living in with, especially with this distance learning stuff. And I don't think it needs to be in the handbook, but while we're on kind of that expectations, I think it's another point of emphasis. And sorry, Susan, that I don't get a pick on you because I don't have any kids down there. It's all towards the high school. But it's just I guess, an expectation of teachers emailing parents, I guess being responsive within a couple days of getting back versus having to wait a week and get back, try to reach out to that teacher again because you're not hearing back. It's probably more prevalent in the current time, but if we enter the fall, you know, looking like what we are right now, I could see it being an issue. It's just, you know, you can't really go into a school and meet with the teacher. It's electronic. So just the point of emphasis would be all I'd have to say.
I think that could be addressed at the elementary level as well, just to remind people of what email etiquette is. And an email should be addressed in any way, shape, or form within so many days. Even if you don't have an answer, receive your email, I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
I totally agree. It's just an act of professionalism to immediately respond to anybody, in our business especially, with an email within not just a day, but within hours. It's life-changing. So.
I do know that if they have 125 kids, even if they're only getting half of them, that could be a little bit of a challenge right now, but still set some parameters for the employees so that they know what that is. We have some young millennials that may not know what that is.
Yeah.
I know we have a discussion in our household that Scott and I do not agree with our children about what that email timeline is.
So I think
Yes.
it's something
Fighting buddies and all.
something we as administrators just need to instill in our staff as far as, communication and professionals related communication.
And I think it is kind of it is what it is. I mean, we only got a couple weeks left for this year, but it's something to really think about is as we go into the fall, if we happen to be back to this distance learning and are in the classrooms, some of those sorts of things, processes to tighten up for expectations to teachers, that communication.
Yeah.
And that would be it. I appreciate you guys thinking about it and addressing it.
Thank you.
Well, Dustin, if you go missing in action and your child goes missing in action, the teachers are now emailing Joe Logan and I to see if he's available. So fix it.
Okay, let's get back to the handbooks. Any last comments on the handbooks, either student or staff? All right.
So what I will do, I will bring them, Tandy and I discussed, I'll bring it to the next meeting with, I think, is there any corrections?
I have a few just corrections that I'd like to make and to put a final copy in.
Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it as a new business item on the next meeting agenda, give you a chance to look at them, and we'll approve them in new business is what we'll do. That way we'll have more input and then we can get them approved. So, that's my thinking on that.
Okay. All right. We're going to go to, we're done with work session? Okay, public comment. Announcements.
I have two. I want to remind everybody of the first budget meeting on Monday night, June 1st, 5:30 p.m. We'll be doing this format. I talked to Janet today. She will be sending them out to you via the internet or whatever. It's going to be interesting as we navigate our way through these, electronic times. But she should have that out by, I believe, to all of you at least by Saturday or Sunday for you to review. I've involved, I've talked to Bernie about this morning, I've involved Michael Carter a lot in this. My discussion with Michael is 2021 is his year, it's no longer Will Cahill's year. And I strongly advise Michael to be a key player on this budget. And we've had a fantastic transition. I met with him 2 days last week. I'm not sure if Michael's going to be joining us on Monday night because it's his budget meeting with the great year. But the one thing we agreed upon today with all the notices of cuts we've been getting from the state, you haven't heard this yet since we read it for the first time. The recommendation that we received from ODE yesterday, OC yesterday, and Michael is in the pipeline for all the politics and Salem with the budget stuff. What we're going to be submitting to you on Monday night is a budget target of 291, and in my superintendent's message, I will state if things go south, here's what we'll probably look at to cut. We're not going to go ahead and put cuts in this budget. We will put suggested cuts should ODE fall below 9.1 billion. So that's the advice from COSA. Jack Thompson, I'm on the ESD budget board. That's the kind of attack he's using. I think the purpose of this is to send a message to the state legislature that, we need every dollar we can to sustain and keep our districts whole. And so we're adopting that philosophy too. So that's what you're going to be seeing on Monday night. So reminder, your budget meetings, first one Monday night, 5:30. And then the next one, the second one is on the 15th. I can't remember the schedule, the third date, if we need a third date. But June 24th is the last meeting. The final budget, I believe, is passed. The final approval of the budget meetings board is passed on June 24th. So that's all the news on the budget. I haven't given you much till now, but I'll tell you folks, it's been a moving target. Every week we get on ODE, we talk about what's cut here and there. SIA, I believe we are going to get some SIA dollars. We're cutting that down. 40% on that. So 40% on SIA. Measure 98, the CTE fund there, think it's 35% cut on it. You know, those will be reflected. But I will in my narrative write some things about those when we look at the decision. So that's the news for now. Every week, we're on this same venue with ODE. Every week it's a different week. It's different information. You know, the revenue picture coming out hasn't been too stellar, too pretty. And of course, that affects all, you know, enterprises across the state board. We've got state government centers. Questions on that? Kind of a statement on that, but it's okay.
Appreciate the information.
The next announcement, I'm going to let our high school administration tell you about what graduation looks like. So, fellas, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Cahill. I have Randy Harris on here also. If we have any more questions, she might pipe in. But I've been working with Randy, Deanna, Ruth Ann, some of the senior kids, and trying to put together graduation process as close or as real as possible to what we can do. And you know, in my private life, I don't have a problem going road, but in my professional life, I try to stay away from going road. And so I'm sticking to the rules as best as possible. And we're going to do a parade. There's going to be a stage. The students will be able to walk across the stage. They'll receive a diploma. You know, there'll be the Val South speaking. The process, the whole parade process will be professionally videoed, and the kids will get a copy of that after graduation. That copy will also have some senior slideshows and some memories in it. It'll be live streamed on 93.5. There will also be live streamed by the videographer. It'll also be a Facebook live stream on that part. I initially thought we'd be able to do a parade that would follow the Labor Day route. The highway department said no. So I went ahead and said, okay, let's do a town route. I got a text message. Everybody's trying to help out. Say, hey, call so-and-so because so-and-so knows so-and-so, and we probably can do it. I went that route, and that person said, well, I'm going to get you to my supervisor. And I kind of smiled because the supervisor is the guy that told us no the first time. So I had a great conversation with Mr. Jacques, J-A-Q-U-E-S, and he said, you guys can do whatever you want, you just can't impede traffic. And I go, that means having people wait as we cross 395. He said, exactly. I said, okay. And I go, what about police escort? He goes, if you have police escort, that is a parade, you cannot impede traffic. I said, all right. So we're back to our InTown Route, which will start at 3rd Street, and the tennis courts, which is L Street. Students get to pick their spot in the line. We'll have them all lined up. We have a Google form and a process for that. They will head in a easterly direction on 3rd Street. They will go by the school, turn on High Street, go to, I believe it's 6th Street, and then come back on 8th Street, head north on 8th Street, go around the middle school, down 2nd Street, and come back to the tennis courts. And as they get back around, that is when they'll come and get their diplomas. And we have a process all set up with some staff helping us. The graduate and one family member will be able to get out of the car and take pictures as the graduate comes across the stage. I will do more than just announce their name. At this point in time, we'll do what we can to best let everybody know that they are a National Honor Society member, FFA member, by Literacy Seal, added, and then also I will be announcing their future plans. And they'll go across the stage, get their diploma, receive their diploma, and then we'll have the hallways there who will do their professional photography deal. And then the parade, pretty much after that, one more loop down and around to the tennis courts. But I'm pretty sure once they get their diploma, they'll be able to do whatever they want. There'll be a disclaimer in there that says if they ever leave the parade route, they're on their own and no longer part of the Lake County School District Class of 2020 parade. on checkout on the 3rd and 4th, they'll get a bag that has a bunch of stuff in it. One of the things will be their Preroute position, number 23, that has to be on the dash. There'll be something that says your parent or guardian has to be the driver of the car. We have things in place for students who do not have a vehicle. We'll help them out. I think I covered it all. Any questions?
Yeah, for the sake of a couple of board members here, who all is going to be on the stage?
Right now it'll be me, Carol Owens, the grad speaker, is asked to be on there. And then Mr. Cahill and Mr. Schulenberger, you guys will either be on the stage or in chairs close to the stage to hand the diplomas. And then I assume Mr. Gus Davison and you may want to be in it. At least hand up your sons. And then any other board member, you're more than welcome. We just need to know.
Well, I don't know how that's gonna look. I was thinking about that and what we did in the past, and I think the last thing we need is a bunch of hands touching every diploma and handing those out. So I'm happy to just stay with my family on the route, and that is fine with me.
And that's perfectly okay. I think we'll be okay then with Mr. Cahill, and if Mr. Schulenberger's there, we should be all right.
I can do that. So I guess the usual format, you'll announce, and I'll probably hand it to Barry, and then Barry will hand it off to the student. That's
Yeah.
kind of the MO.
And we can't have handshaking.
Okay.
Pretty much just give it to them, and they might elbow bump you, hip bump you like in the old days, I don't know, but can't have the handshaking.
You want
I
me to?
just wanted to say thank you. That sounds like a lot of work that you put into it, Lane, and I appreciate it. And for right now, it is what it is for these kiddos.
You want me to get Barry a set of blacksmith tongs to hand the diplomas out with?
So what time are we planning on doing this? Are we still doing it on the 6th?
Yeah, it is. I've always given it June 6th, mainly because that was the date picked and everybody was worried about their announcements and stuff, and the parade will start at 1 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Lane, is there gonna be any seating for the public out in front of the school?
I'm gonna probably have to rope off out in front of the school, because then it would be an organized group of more than 25. But if people are camping out in front of the middle school or somewhere where I just happen not to notice, I'm not gonna kick them off.
Okay.
Well, sure, I'm going to just praise you guys for the work you put in and the creativity you put into this and everything else and making this happen. And these poor seniors, my goodness, what a year.
Yeah,
That's so
the
happy.
seniors know that they can decorate their cars, and I've also allowed them to decorate their hats this year.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, again, everything's different, and as long as people are willing to accept that everything's different, I think they can make it the best day ever. And if we all recall, one thing about graduation is the barbecues at private houses afterwards is when the true fellowship and family and friends get together and talk about what happened. And I think with the availability to use a videographer, and we're going to add some senior slideshows, and we got a few surprises for the grads, I think everything's going to be all right.
So at one point there was some mention of banners on the light poles uptown. Is that still a go, or where did that head?
Yeah, that's still a go. And as you all know, you've either been a senior or you've had seniors in your house. Trying to get seniors to turn in pictures was quite the feat, but those should be going up real soon.
Like I said, thank you so much for the hard work and the creative force you put into this, and I really appreciate it. All of everybody in terms.
Well, I want to make sure everybody understands that Ruth Ann and Brandy, Emma, and Deanna are the workers.
Kudos to all of them as well.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody. And now,
Hey Barry, I have one more thing I wanted to say.
okay.
I going through the handbook providing some points of emphasis there on the end, but I want to take this opportunity, since Lane and Chris and Susan and Brandy are on, and Will is just, you guys have been handed a pretty cruddy hand back in March, and you've made a pretty good play on it, and your staff and everybody with you. And so I know that some of you have received some feedback from me, probably more than you desired, but I really appreciate everything you guys have done, and it's turned out pretty good.
Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you. I want you to know that it's been a wild ride, and we've tried hard to rally the troops and stay positive. This week's message in our staff meetings has been stay the course. Focus on the good things. I think it's going to get a little bumpy finishing off and figuring out how many students actually are going to need some support, whether we do it this summer or wait till fall. I think it's going to be bumpy. I'm really concerned with the amount of students who have kind of quit or given up or are happy with that 61%. It's been a lot of work keeping everybody positive, but I appreciate your comment, Mr. Gustavus, and a bunch.
Okay. Thanks, Dustin, for saying that. Anything else from the board? All right. Any other announcements?
No other announcements.
Okay. Next board meeting agenda items.
Well, we have the end of the year principal reports. Wanda Chavez is bringing a recommendation for extended school year, which means a summer program for that particular teacher that you're included every year. The 2020-21 board meeting calendar will be presented and discussed that evening. And then, of course, the other agenda item on here that is on the agenda for this evening is approval of the handbooks under new business.
Okay.
And we hope to have some new hires, yes.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, indeed.
When is that next board meeting?
June 10th.
All right. Adjournment.
I'm ready to return the meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.